Hey y'all, hi. It is finally time for another episode of What's Cheering Me Up Right Now. Long overdue for a couple of reasons. One, I feel like we could all use a little cheering up. And two, the first thing, there are a lot of things when I sat down to make a list. I mean, it's not a massive list, but there are a handful of really great things that have definitely been helping me to stay cheered up through this difficult time in the world and through this time of great transition. As you can see, we have really entered the end game for packing. All my makeup is packed, my clothes are packed. It's really past the point where it would have been worth it for me to clean up the background, move all the boxes out of the way. So it's just all happening. We're barreling towards the cross-country move. So there are some things that have been cheering me up during this time of transition. And the first thing in particular that I just can't wait to tell you about, basically I'm so passionate about it and so excited to share it with you that it drove me to remember that it's time for me to film another one of these videos. If this is your first time to my channel, then welcome. You picked a good one to start with. I love a good What's Cheering Me Up Right Now. This is kind of my version of a favorites video. That's a traditional video in the genre of YouTube beauty content. But instead of sitting down and telling you my favorite new makeup that just came onto the market that I've been testing this month, I'm telling you about the things that are cheering me up that aren't necessarily makeup, and in most cases aren't even things that cost money. There are a few things in this video that are things. When I sat down to make the list, there were a few that just were begging to be put on the list because they're so great, but I'm going to save them for the end. So if you're on a no buy or a low buy and you don't want to hear about the things that I've bought recently that have cheered me up, but only the other things, just watch through the video until you get to that warning and then you can click away. I think I forgot to say that if you're new or if you haven't subscribed yet, I hope you'll subscribe, especially if you enjoy this as you're watching. Now, let's go ahead and get into the meat of this video. All right, getting right into it, y'all. I can't stand it. I have been listening to an album from a musical artist that I just am into it so much. And I traditionally do share music that I've been listening to. I'll often make my own playlist on Spotify and then share the playlist, and that's what's been cheering me up right now. I find that when I remember to listen to music consistently, I realize how much it cheers me up, and sometimes I forget, and then I remember again, and then music makes it onto the list when I sit down to film this video, inevitably. I'm going to tell it to you a little bit story time. Here's what happened. The last What's Cheering Me Up Right Now, if you saw it, you may remember that I had built myself a playlist called High Fashion. The song that seeded the playlist, the first song, is the song High Fashion by Roddy Ricch. I was really into listening to it, and then Spotify was recommending songs that are adjacent to it or related to it. And through those song recommendations, I built the playlist. And at the time of filming that video, that playlist was my absolute jam. I was really into it. I was listening to it constantly. I'll link that playlist down below this video too. So if you didn't see that video and you want to listen to High Fashion, you can click through and listen to it. I got some really good feedback from you guys. A lot of you were like, I've been listening to High Fashion and I really love it. It's rap. And so if you don't like rap, I mean, if you haven't ever really given it a chance, this might be the time to give it a chance. You could try listening to this playlist and see if you like it. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. If you don't enjoy some adult content in your music, then it might not be for you. Even though I have really loved some specific hip hop artists, rap artists, and some specific albums and songs over the course of my entire life of listening to music, this playlist is really making me more familiar with this genre, or maybe this side of contemporary rap music. And I've become more and more of a fan over the last several months. So on the playlist, it's a long story. I feel like What's Cheering Me Up Right Now is inevitably a sort of semi-story time video, and I'm just gonna lean into it. It only comes around once every 2 months or so. We can all handle it. I just realized as I listened through this playlist over and over again that there was this one song on it that felt to me like it was doing something a little bit different. There's sort of a cheeky, fresh, and kind of differently inspired relationship between melody, lyrics, and rhythm. It's called Never Change. The artist is called Dusty Stay True. And when I looked him up months ago, it must have been, like last year. You could have knocked me over with a feather when I saw that he didn't have an album out. And I was like, Dusty, stay true. I'll be following your future career with great interest. So a couple of weeks ago, I was listening to High Fashion, the playlist, and I came to the Dusty Stay True song, Never Change. And I was like, I wonder what's going on with Dusty Stay True. I wonder if he's put out any new songs. So I clicked through to his profile on Spotify and he has dropped an album. The album is called True to Me. I started listening to it and y'all, I think it is so good. And I think it's doing well. I don't know music very well. I don't know the genre. All I know is that if this artist does not blow up, if this artist does not become one of the biggest, there's no justice in the world. And maybe there is no justice in the world, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed for Dusty Stay True because I'm shook by how good it is. And maybe it's also just me learning how much I like this kind of music. I am a formal poet after all, so I think a lot in terms of rhyme and rhythm, and I spend a lot of my most tender and dearest creative time and time as a reader with poetry and with the relationship between the sentence and the line. And it's not the same thing as the relationship between melody and lyric and rhythm and rhyme. They're different art forms, but there's a lot in common, and there's more crossover between what I do in poetry and this kind of music than there is between what I do in poetry and most other kinds of music. So it may be that I'm just becoming more of a fan, right, in general. But I'll say it, I feel like there's something really specifically special about this musical artist in particular. The full breadth of command over what I think makes rap music great is absolutely there. The wordplay, the repetition, the syncopated beats, the clever way that phrases and sentences fit into each other and interweave. But there's also a musical sensibility that has a kind of levity that is addictive. I just cannot stop listening and I cannot get the songs out of my head. And the content is powerful as well. There is a thread that runs through the album True to Me that has to do with trauma, being traumatized from life experiences, growing up into an adult and carrying that trauma with you, feeling messed up over it, knowing that you're that way, living with it, living through it. The songs talk about that. So I'm both learning from it and having the gift of a window into that soul and that psyche, and also feeling akin to it in some ways, though not in other ways. And that is very powerful in addition to everything else, right? The lyrics, the music. Is anyone out there like, OMG, I already love Dusty Stay True, can't believe you're talking about it here on YouTube? I want to know if there are any other mega fans. I'm over here like seeing if he has any concert dates, like is he touring? And he doesn't even have a website. I could easily spend this entire video talking about True to Me by Dusty Stay True and just label the video why I like True to Me by Dusty Stay True, but I'm going to have to move on. So my friend Becca, who I've talked about before up here, she has an Instagram account, Becca Sun, and also a delightful YouTube channel, Becca Sun. I will link both of them down below as well. Becca told me, the last time we were hanging out, she told me about this Instagram account, Carla Rockmore, who she just started following. I should have done more research. I always just make the list, sit down, and then tell you what's been cheering me up without doing all my research. And then I start feeling it as I'm filming, and that's happening now. But Carla Rockmore, from what I can glean just from watching her Instagram stories, she must work in fashion. I think she works in fashion. Either that or she's just somehow amassed this fabulous dynamic closet. And I think that what happened is that over the course of the pandemic, she started filming little videos of herself in her giant, glamorous walk-in closet, getting dressed and sending them to her friends. So it was like a way of connecting to her friends and keeping the love of fashion alive while we were all in quarantine. And then I think this is what happened. She started posting them on Instagram, and then her Instagram account blew up. maybe I'm making up that story. Needless to say, she now has an Instagram account on which she posts stories of herself putting outfits together and talking them through. And she is a wild, dynamic maximalist in fashion and in the way that she talks and presents herself. And she's always just layering things on top of things, a lot of print mixing, a lot of trial and error, a lot of fun, a lot of play, but also, you know, she's very much working as a stylist on herself and like talking you through the process. And of course, it's cheering me up just on the face of it to be following Carla Rockmore and to see her stories. It does cheer me up to see them. But it's actually not just Carla Rockmore herself, her existence and her wonderful work that's cheering me up. It's the way that it's got me thinking about maximalism and fashion and joy and identity and perfectionism. So hear me out. Here we go. Here we go. And I'm not going to cry during this one either. I feel like I have in me both a minimalist, like a refined neutrals and texture loving minimalist, and a wild maximalist who loves print mixing and color and silliness and cheekiness in fashion. And they kind of disapprove of each other. But most of all, the minimalist disapproves of the maximalist. And this is true also in home decor. It's not just in fashion, but it's also kind of true in makeup as well. Sometimes I end up with like a wild editorial, experimental, duochrome, graphic, blush draped look. This is a lot. And sometimes I come on here and I'm just like fresh face, no eye makeup, no mascara even, I sometimes do. So that's just the example. Makeup is just the example, but it's that way for me in everything in my entire life. Some of my blouses are these like stark minimalist, you know, a single beige drape of fabric. And some of my blouses are literally quilt pattern patchwork print with puffed sleeves and ruffles all over the place. I have been pondering this lately and thinking about the fact, articulating to myself that it stresses me out and makes me feel bad. There's something about being that way. Maybe this is what I want to say. There's something about the way that social media pigeonholes different aesthetics and categorizes them and does like ad targeting to certain things, dividing people. But it's not just people, it's like just style. I mean, style isn't what people are. So it's really just the style of people, like the way people choose to put themselves together, right? Dividing it into groups and trying to push you to be in one or the other group. And both as a consumer of content and especially, I think maybe as an influencer, someone making content, I feel like I'm doing it wrong because I'm not squarely in one group. And I feel like on some level, I have been expecting myself to choose a team my whole life. But guess what? I'm going to be 40 in 3 years. And I don't want to give up either team. I don't want to get rid of all of my colorful print mixing, frilly patterned, celebratory, glorious stuff and my glitter and my sooty, smudgy, duochromy, weird makeup. But it remains true that there are many days when to feel my most put together and my most powerful, I default to the simple, sometimes structural, often silhouette heavy, but desaturated minimalist fashion. So Carla Rockmore makes me feel some type of way and then makes me feel some type of other way as an extension of that the more I think it over. Because here's the thing. I think that as I've gone through my life, I've been expecting myself to choose a team and I've been expecting that I would choose the minimalist team. Part of me has been thinking, as I get older, I'm going to let go of all these frivolous things and I'm going to just control myself, lock it down, and become like really sophisticated and start resisting the temptation to ever buy ruffles. Someday I'll be perfect. Someday I'll turn into granite and then no one will be able to touch me like that. Like there's been this sort of commentary, mostly subconscious. Someday everything in my house will be beige and then I'll have reached my final form. So watching Carla Rockmore do her thing kind of like called out that voice and was like, well, what if this is way better? Like, what if we go the other direction? What if nothing things beige and we turn into Carla Rockmore. That actually sounds awesome, and she's certainly doing it well. But then once that voice had called the other voice onto the floor and they were having that conversation with each other in the forefront of my mind, instead of it all happening instead of just subconscious shame and feeling like I'm not my perfect self, I was able to see and speak about this conversation. And when that happened, I was like, aha, maybe this is the problem. And I recalled one of my favorite quotes from Walt Whitman, which I feel like I've had memorized for my whole life. Do I contradict myself? Very well, then I contradict myself. I contain multitudes. Carla Rockmore has been cheering me up because when I think about her and I think about the part of me that is like her and the part of me that's going to grow to be even more like itself and even more like her, that I'm going to feed and let expand the colorful, dynamic, irreverent, powerful part of me. I forgot how that sentence started, but it was going so well. I think that I had said, when I think about that side of me, when I think about her and I think about that side of me that's like her, lately I've been thinking, yeah, that's part of me. I contain multitudes. I contain that woman, that Hannah. So if I show up one day in a black column dress with my hair slicked back and a totally bare face except for a red lip, which is a look that I love, head to toe, that's a look that I love. If I show up looking like that one day, and then the very next day I show up in my, pink ruffled Ulla Johnson blouse with, red high-waisted pants and platform heels, all that is saying is that I contain multitudes, and it's not a failure to identify. It's not a failure to edit or a failure to brand myself. I feel like we've kind of been here before. If you've been here with me on YouTube since the very beginning, you know we've been here before talking about branding. It's not a failure to brand myself. It's not a failure to identify my true self, the truest Hannah, and to only dress in a way that reflects her. All it is a reflection of the fact that I contain multitudes. Maybe the truest truth, but one that I have been subtly made to feel bad about, partly by myself. It's partly something that it's like a standard that I developed at some point from somewhere and that I have been making myself feel bad about for not achieving. The curation, I mean. Like the choosing one team or choosing one way to always look or always be. And people will tell you that fashion is all about having a signature style. And I do think that within the realm of those different ways, the ways that I like to dress, I do have signatures and I definitely do curate. It's just that I haven't picked a box. I haven't picked one of the boxes that are currently the check boxes on offer on social media and like in our style and fashion zeitgeist. My sense of style is like a Venn diagram of a lot of them, especially like the minimalist and maximalist, which are opposites of each other. So it's like everything. The thing that started with the conversation with Becca and starting to follow Carla Rockmore, it has led to a kind of rumination that has cheered me up, because it's led me to expose a little corner of shame that I was harboring that I hadn't really addressed before, and to address it and kind of release myself from the pressure to pigeonhole myself. And the more I kind of put it into practice, because we're about to move. So I'm thinking about clothes that I might not want to take with me. And I'm also thinking about what the space might look like, the new house, like how we might furnish it. And homewares is another place where all of these forces really come into play. I'm like, I want a green velvet chaise lounge, patterned wallpaper. And then the other voice is like, I want everything to be beige, a textured beige couch and a textured beige rug and beige curtains. And that will be sophistication. So I've been thinking about it. I'm thinking about resisting choosing one, thinking about it being okay to like both and to kind of mix them, to mix minimalism and maximalism. I've been thinking about that and putting it into practice mentally. And what I've realized as I've paid attention to how that resistance and that releasing affects the way I think about things and think about identity is that resisting pigeonholing and releasing myself from the pressure, paradoxically, it has caused a further loosening of the former vice grip on things themselves and the ownership of things. Because I think that the desire to attach oneself to a specific aesthetic movement or a specific aesthetic has to do with identity. It's like, this is very me. This dresser is very me. This rug is so me. And so if I own those things, that will say something about me and it will like solidify my identity. A lot of things are sold every day on this premise, and a lot of advertising is based on this premise. And it's the premise that underwrote all of my overspending before my no-buy year, and it's the lie that I spent my no-buy year unlearning. Accepting that I am both a minimalist and a maximalist and that that's okay and that there's nothing wrong with loving both and playing with both. It's like it separates me from the part of fashion advertising and makeup and style advertising that is trying to make me pick a team so that they can advertise to me based on that premise, like based on what they think I think my identity is. All of that stuff is put in its place as play, as something wonderful and joyful, and not as something identity defining, vital, and desperately necessary, which is what I felt like stuff was before my no-buy year, and that was why I couldn't stop spending my money on it. So that was a very long, roundabout story, and I hope that you stayed with me. Carla Rockmore, in and of herself, is cheering me up, and thinking about what she represents to me has led me down a path of thought and a little bit of growth, inner growth, that has cheered me up even more. I don't have any shows to tell you about today or movies. All I've watched is Drag Race, basically. Joe and I watched UK versus the World, and now we're watching the current season of regular Drag Race, and it's all been delightful, but I haven't had as much time as I usually have to watch stuff because I haven't had any time to take a bath. And in the bath that's usually where I watch movies and shows, and that's usually what I'm telling you guys about. I'm gonna knock out 2 really quickly, and then I've been filming for like almost an hour, and I've only talked about Dusty Stay True and Carla Rockmore. It's a lot. Let's zoom through these last couple. You guys are just here. You're just here to get the tea. So I've been reading these great books as they've come out over the past several years. You know I like fluffy, cozy murder mysteries, right? That's like my genre for reading. Not only. I mean, I obviously read some literature, some literary nonfiction, and a good bit of poetry. But for me to like read while I'm falling asleep at night, the indulgent kind of reading where I'm like stressing out, I'm on the plane or something, you know, I have a soft spot for basically everyone descended from Agatha Christie in every direction. And there's a, I don't know, kind of new mystery writer on the scene named T.E. Kinsey. He started writing this series, the Lady Hardcastle novels, starring Lady Hardcastle and her assistant, Florence Armstrong. I think the first one came out several years ago. I think I found out about the series after 2 or 3 were published. I read them all, and then since then I've just been like keeping up with them and reading the next one as it gets released. And I think at this point there might be 7 or 8 or something. So if you have my same taste in cozies, you know, cozy mysteries, then I really recommend T.E. Kinsey, Lady Hardcastle, and Florence Armstrong. I think I might have listened to one of them on Audible a long time ago. They make great audiobooks. Now I'm just reading them, but they make great audiobooks too. So if you're an audiobook listener and you like that genre, it's a good one. I have it on my list to talk about my new haircut and hair routine, but I think that was in the last What's Cheering Me Up right now. It's still cheering me up though, although I feel like we've got not the best example going on today. This is like the Elven version. This is like the Link from Zelda version, because I did the whole blow dry texturizing thing some days ago, and I've been wearing my hair up a lot since then just to get out of my face. And I didn't, before this video, I didn't re-curl it or like re-energize it with the diffuser as I usually do because of this. But if you'd like to see more about my hair routine, then you can go watch the video that I filmed about it, and I will link that down below. And then I put on the list to mention that big changes happening in my life is definitely energizing me. It's funny, I wrote it on the list. I was like, what's cheering me up right now? Change is happening in my life, like exciting, we're exciting to move. And it is true, and it was especially true when I wrote the list. And in this moment, I'm so exhausted and overwhelmed by all the tasks that need to be done that I'm like, past Hannah, what were you talking about? Like, that it's not a cheerful thing, it's daunting. And it is daunting. But the big picture is that I feel on the precipice of a lot of things. And that's a good place to be. And I don't want to undersell that to myself. So I'm mentioning it to you here. Okay, let's get into the 3 things that are actually like things that you can buy that I really like. If you are on a no buy or low buy and you particularly appreciate what's cheering me up right now, because I don't usually talk about this kind of thing, it's like 1 homewares thing and 2 items of clothing. If you don't want to hear about them, farewell. Thank you for watching this video. If you do want to hear about them, then this is what they are. So the first one is actually the sweater that I'm wearing. I'll stand up and show it to you, or sweatshirt that I'm wearing. It is a wildly expensive sweatshirt, designer sweatshirt by this designer, Anina Bing. Here's what happened. I have a budget for self-sponsored review that I spend every month to get makeup to review for YouTube, products to review for YouTube that I wouldn't buy myself because I myself am kind of restrained when it comes to buying myself makeup and skincare. But I realized somewhere along the way that a trickle of new things for review into the channel really greases the wheels and keeps the channel healthy. And I really didn't want that trickle to only be PR sent by brands, because then it's just like brands completely dictating what it is I use and what it is I talk about, and I didn't want that. So the solution that Joe and I came up with for the business of the YouTube channel is for the channel to give me a budget to spend every month on things that I really want to review. So I don't have to be dependent on PR, and I also don't have to feel stressed out about my own personal natural thriftiness. And I can keep my personal decision-making about what's worth my money separate from the fact that I know that buying stuff helps the channel grow. And that means that when I talk about stuff that I did buy for myself with my own money, it's a little bit more unsullied. Like my decision-making process is a little bit more unsullied by the fact that I have a YouTube channel than it would otherwise be. A couple of months ago, we got close to the end of the month and I had barely spent any of the budget for Spoke. Like I basically hadn't spent it. The whole budget was there. And the way that Joe does the accounting for the channel, it zeroes out at the end of the month. It doesn't roll over. So I can't like save it up into the next month. So we were rapidly approaching the end of the month. I hadn't spent the self-sponsored review budget. And at that very moment, I had like 5 review videos that I was preparing all at once, and I was feeling really overwhelmed. Not only was I sort of overwhelmed and oversaturated with review things that I was like testing for review and trying to get my thoughts together to review, but I was starting to worry that that was going to lead to the channel feeling oversaturated with reviews. So basically I needed to spend my budget for self-sponsored review, but at the moment I was like, I don't want to buy any makeup to review on YouTube right now because I'm reviewing enough things right now and I need to populate the channel with other kinds of content because I don't want it to just be all reviews. So I was like, well, what am I going to do with this money? And I decided to buy some wardrobe. I was like, I'll use the budget for self-sponsored review to invest in wardrobe. And so I selected this. It's the kind of thing that it would have been hard for me to convince myself to buy because it's fancy in terms of price and designer, but it's unfancy in terms of like how it looks. I love it. I cannot lie. I mean, it's one of the things that's cheering me up right now. It's on this list. I don't know whether I would have spent my own money on it, but I really, really, really love it. And I'm really glad that I got it. I decided to choose it because it's so Los Angeles and we're about to leave Los Angeles after having lived here for like 6 years. So I felt it's kind of like my souvenir. It's really soft and heavy and thick. It's got a nice drape, but the softness on the inside isn't that like slippery polyestery softness that you feel on the inside of fleece, sweatshirt fleece. It's a little more like a French terry, but a very, very, very soft, low pile French terry that feels almost suede. And I think that they do some kind of distressing on it. I think Anina Bing is like famous for distressed, vintagey distressed sweatshirts, and whatever they did with the material on this manages to make it feel very expensive, even though it's such a casual piece. And I've just been really pleased with it. I've been wearing it a lot on camera. I think you guys have seen that. And I've been wearing it a lot when I'm not on camera. And I'm really looking forward to having it to wear in our new location. So I feel like this was a really good way to spend the last bit of that budget for self-sponsored review. And in a sense, I've just reviewed it for you. So I sponsored myself to review it. The other garment that's been cheering me up massively that you guys have already seen a lot is my Desmond and Dempsey terry cloth robe. I got this for Christmas. It was a gift and I love it. I haven't had a terry cloth robe in a long time. Here, I'll put it on for you. This is actually me every day in my house. It's like this. I mean, I do wear it as a toweling robe post-shower, but I also just wear it for warmth. I wear it like as a dressing gown a lot. It is on my body like 80% of the time. They also make one in this with the other side out. So you can get it in this color with the blue on the inside, but I like the dark blue with the white leopards. And the last lifestyle thing that is like a thing that has been cheering me up is actually a piece of PR. I don't usually share PR in this kind of video, but every once in a while there's a thing, and it's like it doesn't fit very well in other videos either because it's not beauty. Although maybe once I get to my new house, it'll be easier to film in other locations in the house. It's hard to do here because there are like so many people who live in the house. This is a piece of cookware from Caraway Home. They sent me their 4-piece set of cookware. So there's actually a smaller frying pan than this one, which is the one that I use most days. And it's sitting on top of the stove dirty because I just cooked my eggs in it this morning. So I brought the bigger one in here. This one has a lid. There's also a big Dutch oven. And there's also like a small to medium sized saucepan, which is really great because we didn't have a saucepan that size. And I was actually really missing one. I've been considering buying a saucepan that size for months. That's been great. But the thing that's amazing about these is that they're that ceramic coat. It's non-stick, but it doesn't have Teflon in it. It doesn't have any of those horrible chemicals. It's a really slick ceramic non-stick pan. And they're unusual because to make sure that they retain all of their truly extraordinary qualities, like y'all, my fried eggs, you have never seen such perfect fried eggs. You put the teeniest bit of oil or butter or something, and then the eggs just slide around in there. And then at the end of the day, you can just wipe it out. Like they don't need to be scrubbed. Nothing ever sticks to them. It's like really amazing. And I've never really had nonstick cookware like this. So to have the experience of just having the food like slide around in the pan without sticking to it is pretty amazing. And at the beginning I was like, but how is it going to get browned? I was like, how is it going to brown? I didn't understand how it was going to work. If it didn't stick, like how would it brown? But it browns. It browns the same way, just with heat, because it's being cooked. I don't know what I was thinking. I think I'm getting a little loopy because I talked for so long about Dusty Stay True and Carla Rockmore, and I'm like, who am I anymore? So I just need to push through. I'll put up a picture. I'll put up a picture of I'll put up some pictures, some glamorous unboxing pictures of the Caraway stuff. They sent it to me with absolutely no strings attached, which was really great. And it was a really long time ago. I've had it for a long time. And I think that they probably think that I just decided never to mention it on YouTube and never to post about it on Instagram because I wanted to test it first. I'm not out here like accepting cookware and then 2 days later turning around and being like, it's amazing. You can't tell if it's amazing until you've had it for a long time, especially something like this. But now I've had it for months. I'm really excited to take it with us to our new house. And what I was getting at is that you are not supposed to turn the heat up super high right away. So when you put the pan on, you turn it on like medium heat so that the ceramic coating heats up slowly and doesn't get cracked or damaged. And that has been a new experience for me too, because I've always been kind of a high heat cooker. I just like to get in, get out. You know what I mean? I'm like blasting the oven full blast and everything's like sizzling and spraying everywhere. That's how I roll in the kitchen. But not so with the Caraway cookware. It's been a very meditative, low and slow situation over here. And yet everything has come out beautifully. There's like no cleaning labor involved. Not no cleaning labor, but there is a mere fraction of the cleaning labor that used to be involved with cleaning the pots and pans that I use for cooking. So that has been truly delightful. Honestly, when I think about what's cheering me up in the day-to-day, the use of those pans has been such a pleasure that I couldn't not mention them in this video, especially if I was mentioning my Nina Bing sweatshirt and my Desmond and Dempsey robe. It's just been like me in this sweatshirt, in that robe, cooking eggs in my Caraway cookware pans, every day for the past couple of months, listening to Dusty Stay True and thinking about the fact that I contain multitudes. So I hope that you've gotten something out of this video, although at this stage it's hard for me to imagine what. I'm going to go and get myself together, and I appreciate you to no end for being here. Let me know what's cheering you up, or if there's anything you think that I would like based on what I have told you that I like. I always get a lot of amazing suggestions in the comments on these videos. Don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to take extra good care of yourself so that you can be the most effective version of yourself as you do your work in the world.